Hi, I'm Lauretta and this is my sister, Sharon. We are founders of the plant-based retreat, the Detox Barn, and we're also a comedy double act. I know, funny vegans. Shoot me now.
9 years ago, I was diagnosed with a chronic autoimmune disease and got myself better using a plant-based diet. Since then, I've just fallen in love with living well.
I retrained as a natural vegan chef, and each week we'll be interviewing experts in the wellness industry, as well as sharing the highs and lows of trying to live well as single mums living together with our 2 kids.
How well have we lived this week? Well, we had quite an interesting meeting this week that was actually slightly humiliating, but we realised was so bad with boundaries, we didn't actually react to it.
Or call it out. I don't think it's even boundaries. I think when someone is that rude in your face, you realise that when you're shocked, rather than actually go, no, sorry, this isn't all right, I kind of froze and just sort of went really passive. And
well, Agent has been digging out an old script, Darts Wives, which is a comedy play we wrote many years ago, and he wants to basically reignite it. And we've had quite a lot of interest, and we had this one bits of interest at a particular theatre. And he said, like, great, yeah, come and have a meeting.
And we were kind of like, we haven't really been doing that much theatre. You know, the acting has really been parked, really.
Yeah. Well, it parked us.
Yes, we've been.
And also, but they do sometimes say, you know, when you let go.
When you let go, when you don't concentrate on it.
All of that.
Yeah. So we turned up at this meeting. Not, do you want a glass of water? Do you want a cup of tea? We've driven all the way there. We've paid for parking. We've taken our time. Just like, yeah, okay, I really like it. I think it's a really good script. And just want to check with you guys. Do you two want to be in it? And we were like, well, yeah.
Yeah, we're comedy writer performers. So I think you've seen a version of it, haven't you, with us in it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ooh.
yeah.
Ooh. Like to our face.
There's a problem with me. He said, I don't ever work with writer performers. And so,
nightmare. Absolute
So we were
nightmare.
like, why not? I guess because they're all horror. Nightmare. Absolute nightmare. Couldn't work with them.
And then I said, so what happened when you worked with a writer performer? And he went, I don't want to go there. It's so horrific.
I mean, what if I wanted like one of you and not the other one?
Well, actually, he went, what if I wanted you, but not me, and stared me in the face? Like he was fucking Simon Cowell from The X Factor. He went, yeah, what if I wanted you and not her? I don't want her, you.
Yeah.
I want you.
I don't think it was as pointed as that.
And that you haven't got a fucking TV show with cameras there watching my face as I start crying because the sister's a bit split up. I was just like, do you know what? I'm in my 50s. Like, why am I sat here being talked to like this?
I actually wanted to say, I wish I had the courage to go, why are you being such a prick?
Why are you such a
Wouldn't you love
dickhead?
to do that?
Yeah.
So we were like, oh, right, okay.
Yeah, we go, well, fair enough, you know. We've got lots of
We
other
hate
meetings.
Writer performers. We are writer performers. That's like, because I'd want to be head of casting and, you know, as I said.
To make sure you can actually act. You know what I mean?
If you want to hand the script over with you two, nothing to do with it, yeah, happy to take a look.
And I never have to see you, then I might have a look at it. And it was like this piddly theatre.
It's not even that good.
No, and he's a piddly director that thinks he's got power. And I just phoned my agent up afterwards. I was like,
do you know what? Fuck this. I'm sick of being spoken to like that in my face. Would he speak to
Phoebe Waller-Bridge like that?
She's
a writer.
Would he speak to Sharon Horgan like that?
No,
not in a million years.
Would he speak to James Corden like that? We are nowhere in that league.
James Corden. But even so, people are people.
Yeah.
Like, how dare you speak to us like this? So I felt really flat afterwards. I don't know if you've experienced rejection in your face on that level.
And rudeness.
Yeah, and rudeness. But
rejection and rudeness in one sitting.
It's really hard, you know, to kind of keep your spirits up after that. You just sort of go...
We should have just said it back. That's what I'm annoyed at. I've spent my whole life not doing that in case they might know someone that might know someone that might know someone.
We don't want to get a bad name in the industry.
And I wish I'd just gone, fuck off.
Yeah.
If you don't like writer performers, then why are you running a fucking theatre?
And writer performers have probably produced the best comedy over the last 20 years out there. So Gavin and Stacey, James Corden, he's a writer performer. Like don't make out writer performers are just these awful people. I said, yeah, I did actually say, well, Edinburgh is full of writer performers, aren't they? All the shows are writer performers. We don't do Edinburgh. Well, you do actually, because you've got a poster just behind your head of someone that I know that I actually used to go out with. That is a writer performer that's coming here next season. So don't bullshit me. Did I say that? No.
Did we do any of that? We just went, okay, fair enough. We'll just leave it for now.
Yeah, thanks anyway.
So we've got no balls.
We've got no balls. I'm like, just call it out. Call out bad, rude behaviour. Just call it out. Thing is, I hate confrontation.
Well, I did do it once. I remember temping once. And the problem when I call out bad behaviour, I start crying. And it's really ineffective. So I remember I was working with this girl who was very abrupt and...
well, she was aggressive, really. But
yeah, because I don't know. I'm having a bit of help.
I can't see the icon.
Yeah, I'm having a bit of the trouble logging in. And what do I do here? As I said before, you just got to scroll down, press that, press enter, go to the next sheet, and then press enter again.
You're not on the right screen, are you? Go back, and she'd hover over you, and you'd go, and then that would make you really nervous.
And then I made mistakes, and I looked like a complete bumbling idiot. And then I asked her one more time for help, and I was like, I'm really sorry, but I keep getting logging out, and they're ringing me, and they're asking me to book the meeting room, and I don't know which meeting room it is. Is it 3 or 4? And I think I booked the wrong one, like that. And she's like, I told you before, go to the page 3.
Have you opened the Excel sheet?
That's it. You put the wrong code in. That's the code for the other sheet, and like that. And then I just went, I said, what's wrong with you? I said, what is wrong with you? Have I done something to upset you? Have I done something? Why are you so awful to me? And I lost it. And then HR got involved.
She got a HR complaint.
Yeah, I got a complaint. I'm crying and I don't even care that much. I just want to fucking be able to do it. So that's why I veer away from it, because
because you blow up when you call it out instead of being able to go, do you know what? That's actually really rude, saying I hate writer performers to my face when I am actually a writer performer. It's really rude. It's really bad manners. You've treated us quite badly in this meeting. Instead of being able to do that,
I'd start crying.
Yeah, and explode. And then you look like you're mad.
Then I look like I've got mental health issues. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. But, so that's why I don't.
So how well have we lived? Well, we didn't stand up for ourselves, but do you know what was really good?
I don't normally summarise, but I like this.
But what I wanted to say is that we let it affect us for the next hour. We felt a bit low, and I was like, sod this. Let's go home and have a really nice dinner. We don't need this in our lives anymore. We don't need people making us feel shit.
Yes.
So this week it is our last episode, and we have got the incredible Valter Longo.
Professor Valter Longo.
I mean, to me, he's like a rock star.
But he is a rock star of the longevity world.
Yeah.
He's done so much research into longevity and aging. And he's created a lot of work in fasting. Me and Sharon are massive fans. Actually, Sharon's on Prolon at the moment,
too.
Which is the Fasting Mimicking Diet. So it's an amazing episode. Obviously, we think it is fantastic because Sharon has lowered her blood pressure.
Yeah, in 3 rounds, it completely lowered my blood pressure to the point where I was going to go on meds, but I don't have to now. I am still doing it for a little bit of healing on my skin. I think it's a really quick fix. I think if you do it 3 times a year, you are doing your body so much.
Well, let's not bang on about it because he's going to tell you all about it and we're going to talk to him about it. But just to let you know, if you do want to do it, we've got a discount code. We've got a discount code. It'll be written in the notes and you can get 20% off. So, yeah.
Enjoy.
This episode is sponsored by us, Gavin Sisters, and our very first product, Funky Coffee. It's triple certified.
Paid a fortune to sponsor this.
Yeah, we're paying ourselves.
Yeah.
It's triple certified organic Arabica coffee, and it's boosted with potent adaptogens. The health benefits are many, but don't just take our word for it.
Yeah, instead of us banging on about it, we decided to test our coffee out with our guests at the Detox Barn and take a listen to what they have to say.
They're not getting paid.
No one's getting paid here. Let's be honest.
So we just served funky coffee at the Detox Barn. What did everybody think?
Coffee. Delicious. Amazing. And it's not bitter and it tastes like real coffee. I was very sceptical, but absolutely it was stunning.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. And did you find, because you had it yesterday, did you find you had a crash afterwards, or did you feel like you had sustained energy?
Sustained, absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
They want to buy shares in the company. Okay, thanks everybody.
For our listeners, you can get 10% off. Go to gavinsisters.co.uk and use the code podcast at checkout. Today we're joined by Valter Longo, a world-renowned scientist and longevity researcher, best known for his groundbreaking work on aging, nutrition and fasting. Dr. Longo's research has helped shape how we think about healthspan, disease prevention and living longer, healthier lives. Welcome to the podcast, Valter.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
So for me, it's a bit of a personal journey to your work, for sure. I discovered your work a long time ago, about 10 years ago, maybe 11 years ago, when I was in the grips of an autoimmune disease. I had dermatomyositis and I was practically wheelchair bound. And I was desperately looking for other answers. And my dad read an article in the Times, and there was a piece written by a lady called Jenny Russell. And she basically was following your work and was looking at your work with fasting, 72-hour water fasting of mice. And she read that it could potentially reset the immune system. And she started doing it because she had an autoimmune disease, and she periodically did it throughout the year, I think like 3-4 times of 72 hours of water fasting. And she basically like completely healed her autoimmune disease. So I was completely taken back by this. And I was like, oh my God, like I've got to know more. So I know a lot about your work and have adapted a lot of your protocols. But for our listeners that don't know about you and your work, tell us a little bit about what Jenny Russell was describing in that article about your research with fasting and the immune system.
Yes. So obviously the original work was in mice, right? And then it was only this year, 2025 and 2026, that the clinical papers came out. One, University of Miami on colitis, and just this week, Stanford on Crohn's, right? So I don't know if you've seen that study. We had shown in mice that if you do mice do a fasting mimicking diet, and so a diet that mimics the effects of fasting. The FMD is basically a vegan, very healthy, diet that lasts 5 days, and that is low calorie, low sugar, low protein, high fat, healthy fats like olive oil and nuts and all of that. So the idea was to combine a very healthy diet, like Okinawa, Mediterranean, Loma Linda. So combine the ingredients of very healthy diets with the fasting property. And so there was a good idea, and it worked on lots of things, including inflammatory bowel disease. And in the IBD, it was interesting because it looked like, as you mentioned, water-only fasting, but in the IBD, it looked like the prebiotic, so the vegetable ingredients in the FMD were very important to cause the protection against gut autoimmunity. So because probably the prebiotic were feeding the bacteria, the good bacteria, lactobacillus bifidobacteria, that were then contributing to the protection and to the dampening of the immunity.
I just want to circle back on that. So your research shows that when people fast, it creates something called autophagy. Is that right?
Autophagy is part of it. I don't think is a big part of it, but is a part of it, right? So I think that in the period where the organs and systems shrink, autophagy contributes to the effects. But I think autophagy is stem cells, is cellular reprogramming, it's anti-inflammatory properties like glucocorticoids are produced. So it's an overall system and program that probably always had the job of reversing autoimmunity. So the idea with autoimmunity is oftentimes there may be a one-time exposure to something, and then that antigen or that potential antigen goes away, but you're continuing to attack something that is belongs to your body, let's say, right? And so maybe fasting always had the job of removing that self attack. And now once we stopped fasting, that ability to remove that went away, and and people develop chronic conditions. Now this we don't know yet, but certainly the two trials by Stanford, and we've done trials on multiple sclerosis and lots of other and work in on other mouse autoimmunities, and it keeps on working. So we suspect that it's a general property of fasting, and particularly fasting mimicking diet, because of the prebiotics in reducing all of these things. So autophagy, inflammation, reprogramming, stem cell activation. So, for example, in the mouse study with Crohn's colitis, we saw intestinal stem cells being activated, and then hopefully most likely going to work to rebuild what was damaged by the autoimmunity, right? So that's why autophagy is probably maybe 10, maybe 20%, something like that. And then the bigger part is all the things that I listed here.
For example, so obviously when I read her work, I tried to do water fasting and it didn't work because I couldn't do it. And that's why I know that you've developed the FMD diet. I would get to like 48 hours and my bloods would completely crash. So I've read some of your work for the FMD for an autoimmune protocol. And for any people out there that have got autoimmune diseases, I know it's hard to find this, but I have found it on some of your work, but you don't publicise it too much. But there has been a suggestion to do like a 7-day FMD every 2 months for people with autoimmune disease. Is that correct? Does it help? Can it cure autoimmune diseases, do you think?
I think that the world is under the misconception that diseases like autoimmune diseases don't come from food, right? And of course the world was under that misconception for celiac disease, right? And for the longest time, that was believed to come from somewhere else. It wasn't food. And then I don't remember if it was a British physician or who it was that said, no, I think it's the bread and the pasta and that's what's causing the autoimmune. Yeah, so I think that if you keep reintroducing the antigen, right, whatever that may be, you're not going to cure that autoimmunity.
Sorry, can I just stop you? When you say antigen, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, like if you have celiac disease and you keep introducing gluten, you can do all the fasting mimicking diets you want. It's going to help you. It's going to keep it in check, but it's not going to cure it, right? And because when the antigen comes back around, the gluten, the immune system now has memory of that, and now it is possible that eventually the system gets used to, and now recognizes gluten as no longer foreign and attacking, but as something that it's okay, it's food, right? But it's wishful thinking. So I think great if that happens. It may happen in a group, in a percentage of people. So I think that. This is what we do at the foundation clinics in the US and in Europe. We try to, we apply the FMD and then we try to identify what the problem is, right? So both of these, but I mean, in the absence of being able to identify, which may not be easy, right? Or may not be food, right? Because it could be something else, right? So there is no. We don't know, right? In the case of Crohn's and multiple sclerosis, et cetera, et cetera. So the 7 days, we've used it for a multiple sclerosis trial in Italy, but it was a pilot trial. It was not randomized, and so it's a little rough on people, right? It was a little rough. So now with Stanford, I did use the 5-day FMD, and it was very, very effective. So yeah, we're thinking that maybe the 5 days is sufficient. We were going for 7 days to try to get more of a killing of autoimmune cells. And because you see in 7 days, you see a drop in white blood cell count. And then after refeeding, you see it go back up. So we were hoping that would be an opportunity to sort of clean up, kill lots of autoimmune cells. And so I think the idea still stands, but the difficulty probably easier, to do. Let's say if you have autoimmunities, talk to your doctor and do 3 FMDs in a row, and then maybe 1 FMD every 4 months, right? And so now it becomes reasonable. If somebody had to do it for 20 years, every 4 months you get 5 days of an FMD. But if you identify the antigen, if you identify what is the immune system is attacking now, provided that that's identifiable, that would be ideal. And then you
Yeah,
don't need to do
because
it. Maybe do like me to do it once or twice a year, the FMD.
yeah, that's interesting. So, because I've been doing, so just to tell you a bit about, what I did to get better. I'm using the FMD now because I've still got a bit of inflammation on my skin, but I basically use diet. So I became plant-based. I cut alcohol, processed foods, and processed sugars, and that got me very, very far. I got off all my meds. I got back up on my feet. I got running. I got my life back. But I still have a little bit of inflammation. So I have a little bit of inflammation like on my skin and a little bit on my scalp, and that's never gone. So sometimes it's better and sometimes it's worse. And so I've been trying to use the FMD, and because I read your studies about the 7 days, so I've been doing 7 days every 2 months. Now I did that throughout 2025. So I did about 4 cycles, I think, in the end, 4 or 5. And one thing it did was I also had borderline high blood pressure. Even though I lived the way I do, I still had high blood pressure, and it completely sorted that out. I mean, I was on the verge of going on meds. I was like, oh shit, I'm going to have to go on meds because like this is dangerous to have this blood pressure borderline like this. So it completely did that. It hasn't worked for the skin yet, but I'm not deterred. I'm keeping going. I'm going to just try and do it throughout 2026, 7 days every 2 months to see what happens, so I can share my results with
Sure,
you.
yeah. I mean, usually that's how we start clinical trials, right? People write to us and say, I did this.
Sorry, say that again.
No, I was saying that, for example, one of the reason why we did an hyposmia, so lots of people during COVID lost olfactory function, smell, and taste, right? So it was a British endocrinologist that took my class and said, I did the FMD and my smell came back. And that's how we started the trial. Then we published last year 100-patient trial, and sure enough, this was not lost. It was not hyposmia because of COVID. It was just people that lost the sense of smell, or they had the reduced sense of smell, and the great majority came back, right? So we did a randomized crossover. So we did it twice in both arms. After this was 6 cycles the FMD, but after the 6th cycle, they all were smelling and tasting normal again. So the great majority, like over 90%. So yeah, so it's always that's how we start a lot of trials, by anecdotes. Yeah.
So they say that people are living longer, but their health span is shorter. What can we do? You're a longevity expert. What can we do to increase our health span?
Buy my book. All the royalties, my royalties go to charity, and at some point we'd like to get a foundation clinic also in the UK. But yeah, I think, for example, Italians in the last 20 years, they've gained about 4 years of life expectancy, and they've lost 2 years of health span, right? So the world, with the leadership coming, the bad leadership coming from the US, is turning more and more into drugs, GLP-1, statins, and et cetera, et cetera. So what the system, in a very expensive way, is doing is keeping people alive, sick. And so our healthy lives are going to be shorter and shorter. So most people over the age of 40 or 50 are on 2, 3, 4 drugs, and so in the foundation, for example, the job of the doctor and the dietitian and the scientist. So we have these teams, right? And their job is to get you back to full health, right? So you were saying earlier, you still have some skin problems, right? But that's the job of this team, of this multidisciplinary team. Like, why does she still have this inflammation? Where does it come from? And instead of, okay, let's just give her 2 drugs, immunosuppressants, and hopefully it goes away. And if it doesn't go away, we'll come up with another drug. Yeah. So this is why people are living longer, sicker. And that's why the United States, 18% of the GDP goes to healthcare. And it's always, people are always amazed when I tell them, like, military spending compared to healthcare is very small, or small. And so, so this is what's going to happen to the UK, Italy, and every other country in the world. It's going to be very expensive medicine that has the job of keeping you sick. This GLP-1, for example, right? By definition, like, oh, you gotta take it for the rest of life. Of course, nobody takes it for the rest of their lives, but if you want to keep the weight down, we all know that. In a new British Medical Journal study last week said, if you're on GLP-1 and you stop, you gain weight back faster or much faster than if you were on a diet.
Yeah, I saw that.
So so this is why.
So what have you done? What have you done personally from your research? What have you changed about your life that you never used to do?
Well, I change lots of things in a reasonable way, and that's also one of the rules for the foundation healthcare professionals, right? So I change things that I can change, right? So, for example, 12 hours time restricted eating, I do that. I don't do 16 hours, probably also because it's not good for you. I do, a pescatarian diet, so I'm mostly vegetable plus fish, but I eat some meat occasionally, so I do the FMD once or twice a year. I do the exercise. I do the training, the physical training. So I like to do it all. But for example, the exercise I have wherever I am. I have a home in Italy, one in the U.S., and I have stationary bicycles, right? That make So I know I should go and have a bike. And I have it, but it's easier every other day to have this one, and so I think it's also very important that people realize that don't revolutionize your diet or your exercise regimen. Try to find things that you can truly keep for the rest of your life, because the ones that you can do for 6 months and stop are worse than not doing it at all, right? Most people don't realize that. For example, the Mediterranean diet, right? Mediterranean diet, since the Ansel Keys years. 60 years ago, whatever. Now less than probably 10% of Italians are doing the Mediterranean diet, right? So, and a lot of my colleagues, they keep pushing this, and it's great. I push the longevity diet, but the reality is that, you have to think about all the 90% that don't do it, right? And so what do they do, right? And this is why the FMD, the 12 hours and all these things that I do and that we recommend to people, because they're very reasonable. And some people do it all, right? 70% of the people that they come to our foundation don't do the FMD. 30% do and 70% don't, right? So they're ready to try it the other ways. So okay, we go with whatever people are willing to do.
So tell us a bit, because we run retreats and we have lots of guests come, and I talk a lot about your work on retreats, and I'm always pushing the FMD because just I'm a big fan of it. And especially I was completely blown away by my blood pressure, because I wasn't even doing it for my blood pressure. I was doing it to try and heal some skin. So I'm a really, really big fan of it. But a lot of our guests sort of go, oh, we do the 16 hour, we do the 16 hour. And I sort of go, I used to do the 16 hour, but now Valter is saying the 12 hours better. Can you explain why that's better?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's better because people can do it. We're social people.
Yeah.
And, if you do 16 hours, a lot of people have to skip breakfast. And a lot of people like breakfast, right? And even if you don't like breakfast, the data indicates that if you skip breakfast, you're going to have a problem, right? You're going to live shorter with more cardiovascular disease, right? So why are you doing the 16 hours if you're going to live shorter with more cardiovascular disease? Now, this is epidemiology, but this is not a good start when you see this type of epidemiological data on the 16 hours breakfast skippers. You will want to see living longer with less cardiovascular disease, not living shorter with more, right? And these are not just a few studies; these are meta-analysis now, right? I'm not sure why people keep ignoring this and saying, oh, but that's gotta be because the group that does skip breakfast has got worse lifestyle. I don't think so, right? And now we have clinical trials actually showing what happens if you skip breakfast. Randomized clinical trials. Where you are, you're more hungry, and maybe your energy expenditure slows down, and you sleep worse. And so by just keeping, there was a study that kept everybody eating the same food, but either start at 8 or start at 12, and those that start at 12. We're doing worse. And so these are some of the reasons. But now new studies are also indicating that if you skip dinner, you may still have the problem, right? And so I think that for those reasons, and now I always say I never seen a negative study about the 12 hours, right? So I've never heard of a doctor or a scientific study saying here's why you shouldn't do 12 hours of fasting and 12 hours of eating. So I'm still waiting for somebody to say, oh, I have one, right? And so very
But can
important.
I ask though? So when I used to do the 16 hours, I wasn't skipping breakfast. I was just finishing at 6 and then eating at 10. So that's 16 hours and I'm not really skipping breakfast. Is that the same thing?
Um, this new study that was published indicated that it is the 16-hour the problem. And it's not really the timing, right? Now it's just one study. It's a large study, but it's one study, and certainly people can prove it wrong. But I think in general, it's the data is negative. The 12 hours is effective. There's a new study that came out of Egypt. I think is a calorie restriction with or without the 12 hours fasting, and the 12-hour improved the effect of calorie restriction on weight loss. And so I think that much better go with the 12 hours, safer, easier,
Yeah.
and again, the great majority of doctors around the world recommend breakfast, not at 10, but 7 or 8 o'clock. And we always assume that these things that everybody in the world do are not necessarily good for you, right? And they're not necessarily part of a selection, but I think they are, right? I think there is a reason why people have breakfast at 7 that might not have necessarily been shown by clinical studies, but why is it that a lot of people around the world have this 3-meal regimen, right? Is it possible that it comes from knowledge of millions of doctors in the last 1,000 years, and that observations, people that do this, seems to be doing better, right? And they're more nourished, and they're doing better. So yeah, I think it's, I don't know for sure, but I'm speculating that there is also a selection for things that work best at the micro level of a physician, in a little town in the middle of England, saying, you know what, you should probably have breakfast, right? And
Yeah. So can I ask you what because I've heard some really good, interesting stuff. I watched a reel of you on someone else's podcast the other day, but the stuff with FMD and cancer, not only cancer prevention, but treating cancer, like alongside other treatments. Tell us about that, because I think that sort of stuff is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, so this is how we started. So the idea was that which we were showing in simple organisms, that all cancer cells will be affected negatively by fasting, and all normal cells would be affected positively by fasting. So this could be maybe the only way to send all normal cells, and all cancer cells in opposite directions, right? And so it worked very well in mice. Now there's many studies published by not just my lab, by many labs, on virtually any cancer that you can think of. So if you do immunotherapy plus fasting or fasting mimicking diet, it works better. Chemotherapy, radiation, kinase inhibitor, hormone therapy. So, and then eventually the clinical trial started, and and I would say the majority of them, not all of them, but the majority of them are showing very positive effects, and some of it are showing increased overall survival. For example, for triple negative breast cancer patients, and so this is the early small studies are getting bigger and bigger, and so hopefully, like it's happening now for the autoimmunities and for diabetes, right? Those are the two domains where I think the FMD is more strongly, especially diabetes and prediabetes, but also now with the new Stanford study, we're starting to see for autoimmunities. Yeah, and now there's lots of clinical trials for cancer, and the metastatic setting seems to be the one where probably the biggest benefits are going to be seen, and so hopefully we'll see some large, couple hundred patient trial showing positive effects. I know that Vernieri is doing a 150 patient trial now in Milan, looking at immunotherapy plus chemo plus fasting mimicking diet. So we'll see what happens with that then.
just quickly, just for those that don't know, what is the fasting mimicking diet?
Yeah, so I was saying it's a plant-based, very healthy, low sugar, low protein, high fat, low calorie diet.
Yeah, and it's 5 days, and it's made up of different soups and bars. It's very ezy to do.
I mean, we're on day 5, and if I never see a soup again, I'd be quite happy. But I get 2 months off now. So that's with treating cancer. And that, like, sometimes when I talk about your work or talk about FMD, and I might have got this wrong, so correct me, but is there truth in saying that, like, say there's any dodgy, like, pre-cancerous cells going on in the body, that the FMD can kind of go in there and clear up any sort of cellular junk? Does it do that?
It's almost impossible to do that study in humans, right? Because you need 10,000 people, and you will need people that have that, and that they have that. But in mice, it reduced the cancer incidence in normal mice by 45%, right? So and certainly it decreased the lymphomas, it decreased adenocarcinomas, and yes, I think that certainly has that potential, but again, very difficult to prove in people. And but so far we've done lots of studies in animals for cancer, and in most cases the tumors were reduced or were the lowest among all diets used. Even some of the very healthy diets, like vegan diets. And yes, I would say it probably can do a lot of that killing of cancer cells or precancerous cells. But demonstrating in humans is another story, right? In people, it's very difficult to do that trial, so we don't know. But certainly, cancer cells are cancer cells. So in general, you expect to see similar effects. I mean, generally, that doesn't mean for each specific cancer, but generally you expect similar results. But I think that whereas with the cancer treatment, we're going to have more conclusive findings, with the cancer prevention for people, it's going to be very difficult to, know. I mean, we will know it once now. Probably over 1 million people have done the FMD.
Yeah.
So eventually, as millions of people do it, then you could have epidemiological data on people that did more than 2 FMDs per year, more than 3, and then look at the cancer incidence.
So in terms of, like, your career, like, because when I read about your work and what you did and some of the the groundbreaking work, I mean, for you, like, can you remember, like, the most exciting where you're like, oh my God, look what's happened, look what I've discovered? Is there like a massive highlight for you or a particular time?
Well, in the fasting domain, I mean, of course, we worked on other things, but for fasting, I think it probably was the mouse when we gave mice chemotherapy. And first, we see all the mice that got fasting, they were fasted alive, and all the mice that did not fast dead, right? And that was like,
That must have been
you don't
incredible.
expect that. I mean, in biology, you almost never see like all alive, all dead, right? And then there was one, and then the other one was some of the initial cancer, seeing cancer-free survival, right? So with metastatic mouse model, we did chemo alone. It didn't do very much. It slowed down the tumor. We did fasting alone, for fasting mimicking diet alone, and it did about as chemo, right? So one cycle of fasting was as good as one cycle of chemo. But then we combined the two, and now all of a sudden you start seeing mice cancer-free, right? So so those are some of the surprising, or very surprising, right? That now this combination could be so effective together, whereas the each alone. And this also was interesting because a lot of people were saying, well, I'm just going to cure cancer. Maybe you had advanced stage cancer, so I'm going to cure it with fasting. And we always say, no, don't do that. We've never seen, we've never cured any cancer with fasting mimicking diet or fasting alone, right? Once the cancer is metastatic, or even if you establish a local cancer, it's very difficult to get every single cancer cell by just fasting or fasting mimicking diet. And but yeah, even if you just do chemo plus fasting mimicking diet, then you're starting to see.
Powerful. Yeah.
I have read in like some of the medical British Medical Journal that there was some like longer fast done, obviously in a clinic, like 21-day water fast that reversed cancers. Is that true?
Yeah, I think that we've seen one exception, right? And I think the True North Clinic, we've seen one exception in some blood cancers, right? So we have right now some CLL, this leukemia patients, and I think the BMJ had some lymphoma or leukemia also. Yeah, so for the blood cancer, that's probably the only exception where we see that fasting alone can keep the cancer in check. Potentially these were cases, right? So there was case reports, right? So case reports, a lot of times you can get all kinds of things that may not be true, right? But yeah, we see it, and the True North Clinic are seeing it. So we would like to start at some point a CLL trial, and somebody I think is just proposing it to us, right? So I think hopefully it starts soon with these blood cancers where we just use fasting or fasting mimicking diet, and can we keep people away from treatment, from chemotherapy and other therapies that they will get once the markers levels get to a certain point. So we're trying to do it in the pre-disease state.
Okay. And Valter, there's a lot of misinformation out there, especially with, the internet and Instagram and all of that kind of thing, and influencers. What piece of information out there winds you up because it's so it's so wrong?
Yeah, high animal protein, right? So high animal protein, it's just bad, right? It's just bad for you. Now it's been advertised everywhere in the world, and Italian children are eating in some age ranges 2 to 3 times more proteins than they should, and I'm sure British children are in the same situation, and Americans certainly. Yeah, so this is very, very concerning, and this is not having to do with eating meat or not. I mean, you can have meat and have a normal protein diet. So this is really about eating too much, way too much, and it's gonna hurt a lot of people based on everything we've seen epidemiologically, mice, rats, and name it, right? If you look at centenarians around the world, I mean, the low but sufficient protein diet is being consistently. I mean, if you think about a mouse, the only way you're gonna make a mouse live longer, the only way it's known to consistently make a mouse live longer without calorie restriction is to do protein restriction, right? So, or methionine restriction, or one amino acid restriction, right? So which is very high in meat, by the way, and all animal proteins. So I think it's this is a big problem, and and I don't know if it's industry, So of course we've gone through the tobacco companies controlling the story on cigarettes, and now are we having the food version of that? I think so.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts on alcohol?
Alcohol, more than my thoughts, I go with the data, and the data is pretty clear. Up to 3-5 drinks a week, the effects are there, but minimal, right? So yeah, minimal increase in risk in most cancers and most problems, and actually, if anything, a trend for a extended lifespan. A trend, it's not always significant. So overall, people that drink, 3 drinks or so a week tend to live the same or maybe a little bit longer than anybody else. Now, when you get above 5 and especially above 10, the meta-analysis will indicate now, especially above 10, you get into trouble. And so I think that's now, of course, there are some cancers, including breast cancer, for which alcohol is a risk factor. So if you already have another risk factor, let's say BRCA mutation or some other predisposition in the family to breast cancer, probably not a good idea to also add alcohol, right? Now you just have 2 risk factors. But if you don't, it's the effects of, let's say, 3 drinks a week are so minimal that yeah, whatever small percentage increase is probably okay.
I think the problem is that a lot of people that drink, there's a kind of like you're either drinker or you're not drinker, tend to have more than just 3 glasses a week, and so I think that's where it can become difficult to maintain that very moderate drinking. We live in such a, I mean, especially our generation is a bit older, like 40s, 50s. We were brought up in a really hedonistic environment growing up, and drink was just everywhere. And that age group are drinking much more than any other age group, actually. And then obviously your risk for cancer goes up as you get older, and then you add drink as well. It really does become a problem, I think.
Yeah, well, yes, but I mean, that does not justify telling people not to drink, right?
Yeah.
That justifies telling people don't drink more than 3 drinks a week.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And if somebody wants to violate that, hey, okay, now you get into danger zone, or don't drink at all if you have a high predisposition to certain cancers, for which alcohol is a risk factor.
Yeah.
So so it's just very straight advice, and because the last thing you want to do is take away from the population something that does not cause problem, right? So we're already like, oh, well, don't do this and don't do that, and now we like take away the one that makes me maybe live a little bit longer if I drink 3 to 5 drinks a week. But yeah, of course, then there should be a strong message: do not go over 5 drinks a week, no matter what, right?
Yeah.
And so if you want to violate that, then okay, but then you're gonna violate it if you say 0, right? So at least allow the low to moderate drinkers to enjoy life, and
I think that's a good
don't
message.
take it away from people because somebody else is gonna hear that and it's gonna go, oh, maybe I can drink 12 a week, right? So,
This isn't a very scientific question. So this is more of a personal question, Valter, if you're happy to answer it. But do you ever have like a blowout and you're going, oh, sod it, I'm just going to go and get a takeout and drink 2 bottles of red wine?
no. Not 2 bottles
I
of
didn't
red
think so. I'd love it if you said yes, but I didn't think so.
But I mean, I have, I will have sometimes a big steak and like a big, a really bad and environmentally unfriendly dinner.
Pizza?
That yeah, lots of different things. Like in Italy, we have something very unhealthy called panettone, which is a lot of fat and a lot of sugar. I love that.
Yeah.
So but I now I have my own panettone made with olive oil and lower sugar and no butter, and so even there I try to. I mean, the challenge, and this has been the challenge also with the company that I founded, is like, can we make really healthy food that tastes that people love, right? Especially in the FMD. Of course, it's an FMD. You cannot do miracles with something like. But the company has lots of other ingredients and foods that are actually very healthy. So, for example, there's a spread that I went to southern Italy. I always love to have chocolate, and I always love to have almonds, right? So then, everything out there. So I got them to make this very, low sugar, pure, just almond, cocoa, and a little bit of sugar. And this is my breakfast every morning, right? So I like that. I like to, look for things that are very, very tasty and make you happy, but also they're very healthy for you, so.
Yeah. Well, Lauretta is a natural vegan chef, and when we run retreats, it is all about that. Like, she makes the most incredible food, and we have desserts, but the desserts are healthy. They're naturally occurring sugars, or they're like really nice, like date balls, but they're delicious. And sometimes we run retreats in Portugal, and it's known for its cacao, so we'll cover them in cacao. So we don't want anyone to be miserable. I mean, when I changed my diet, my first thought was like, I might get better, but I'll be miserable. I'll be a miserable teetotal vegan, and I might get my health back, but I'm not going to be happy. These negative thoughts went through my head. So one of the things that we were really passionate about was like, okay, I want to get better, but I also want to still love my joy of food. So we've got to be able to do both. And you know, and that's what we do, and that's what we're passionate about, and that's why I think you have to cook from scratch a lot and cook from home, and it's difficult to eat out and eat healthily, but hopefully some of this stuff is slowly changing, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I always talk about this study. The other way is the FMD, meaning like, okay, eat what you can and change what you can and don't change what you can't, right? But do the FMD every so often. And I always talk about our mouse study, where we gave mice, this is 2021 Nature Metabolism paper, and we gave mice a terrible Western diet, like high fat, high sugar, high calorie, and mice become huge, right? I don't know if you ever seen that, but it becomes huge, right? And then and they're very sick, right? They live a lot shorter. I mean, it's remarkable how much shorter the mice lived at this diet. I thought they would live a little bit shorter, but it really cut their lifespan a lot, right? And then we just gave them 5 days a month of the FMD. And sure enough, it reversed everything. I mean, we expected like something in between, right? We expected, okay, it's gonna make him a little bit better for cholesterol. It reversed everything, right? So very surprising, right? So it's like, so is it possible that you could have, I mean, and I'm not advertising that people have a bad diet, we say, no, have a good diet, have the longevity diet. But is it possible that, for all the 90% that don't do the Mediterranean diet in Italy and probably in the UK, that, you can just have those 5 days and it allows you to just enjoy reasonably the food that you like the rest of the month. And now in Calabria, we're finished with the 500 people trial and once every 3 months, right? So everybody's like, yeah, you're crazy. So we'll see. I cannot talk about the results, but now we're saying, what if you can only do it every 3 months or every 6 months or maybe once a year, right? So is it maybe something that is fundamentally happening during those 5 days that can have a very long lasting effect? For example, University of Rome study that we published on chronic kidney disease patients, they did 3 cycles of the FMD and they had a major reduction in proteinuria, right? So the inability of the kidney to retain proteins. And then a year later we looked at it and they still were in the same place, right? So it lasted a year, right? So then yes, better food, healthy and tasty, but also, let's bring in technology like that maybe our hope is at least once every 3 months. It becomes very reasonable, 5 days every 3 months, maybe 5 days every 4 or 6 months, and then be reasonable the rest of the time, but don't have to be religious about everything you do.
Yeah, it's interesting you say about the long-term effects, because even when I was looking at my blood pressure, and the reason why I started taking it was because like, I better face this because I think maybe I'm going to have to go on meds. And so I thought, I'm just going to consistently take it for the next few weeks. And then I was like, oh my God, like the FMD, it didn't just make it good in the FMD window. We're talking like 3 months, 6 months later, it's still reading the same. So that's what really surprised me, was the long-term effects. I mean, obviously I'm doing a lot of FMD now as well, so that could be a factor. But this happened after like 2 or 3 cycles that the blood pressure went completely normal. So I was just like so thrilled about that.
I've never seen her so excited taking her blood pressure.
I was like,
she
check
used
out the
to dread
readings.
it. She would be like, I'm dreading it. And then now she's going, look at me.
Yeah, so it really did.
Yeah.
So do you see this coming into like doctors or fasting in oncology? I mean, I know that has worked for my blood pressure. Like if I was a doctor, I would want to say to my patients, I'm prescribing you FMD for a year. And if it doesn't work, then I'll give you meds. Can we ever see a day where that will happen?
Yeah, the FMD, the idea of the FMD is to make you younger and more functional, right? So if you think about you when you were 20, I imagine you did not have high blood pressure, right? So most people when they're 18, 20, they're perfect, right? They don't have anything. And it doesn't matter what they eat, it doesn't matter what they do, how much salt. I mean, yeah. So I think that's really what the FMD is about, right? Diabetes, pre-diabetes, cholesterol, blood pressure, and all of this now has been proven in clinical trials, multiple clinical trials. And even though I get a hard time usually from British journals that still Longo overclaims and we don't have enough data, but there's a lot of data now. There's I think over 40 clinical trials. And the journalists sometimes they like to talk about, you know, where there is not sufficient data, but they don't talk about where there is sufficient data. And like you just said, right, you know, the doctors all over the world should say, hey, you know, let's put this in the toolkit, right, in our toolkit. So that this is one of the things that we prescribe to patients. And unfortunately, the influence of big pharma and big health and is such that, you know, it's difficult for you know, these novel interventions to make it through the mainstream, you know, and standard of care. So, but we'll see. I mean, you know, every trial is changing things a little bit. Like I love this trial from Stanford, you know, and they just came out and got a lot of press. And so I think it's just a matter of keep going. At some point, I think that the doctors will say, wait a minute, you know, like, you know, when we published 500 people trial, and now we're doing another one in Naples, one of the worst areas of Europe for adolescents, right? 330 adolescents, and we're using the FMD. Yeah, so we're doing the same in the United Arab Emirates. And so I think once we have all of that, and now it gets into thousands and thousands of patients tested in formal clinical trials, yeah, we'll see the medical community saying, okay, come on, you know, this is really, this is a much better way to go than GLP-1, than statins, and loading up with drugs that cause more side effects. And then, you know, then you get another drug to treat the side effect. And then the next thing you know, you're loaded with drugs. And then very difficult to take it away, right? Then everybody's scared. Like my mom is on 9 drugs or something like that. You know, and no matter how many doctors I know, we're very worried about, am I going to take 1 out or 2 out or 3 out? Like, so once you get used to those drugs, then I think it's difficult to go back to normal.
And what about your mum? Is she not listening to your advice?
No, she does. But I mean, you know, I think I wasn't as influential, let's say, you know, when she started taking drugs. Like I had to start taking drugs. I mean, I never did, but this is how I started, right? You know, I was a student at Roy Walford. My cholesterol started going up, my blood pressure started going up, and you know, like everybody else in my family, I think I will have ended up on lots of drugs. So I've never taken a drug in my life, but I think that was the you know, she did not have my expertise, and so she started taking drugs. By the time I understood that she could have done without it, it was too late for her to. But you know, she made it to almost 91, so I think she's part of the group of living long sick, right? So which is okay, but it's not ideal.
It's not optimal, is it?
So is it ever too late to start? That was one of my questions. Like for anyone out there that's sort of in their 50s or early 60s and feels like they've really kind of battered their bodies, is it too late? Can the FMD, you know, or diet changes work at that later stage in life, do you think?
No, it's not. You know, so we know that, you know, you can switch diet as late as 80, and that can have a big impact on your health. You have to be careful because different ages, different requirements, right? So if you do an FMD, you know, and you're 60, that's okay. If you're 65, it's okay. If you do multiple FMDs per year. But if you're 85, you know, you probably have to have a real reason to do. Like, you know, we just finished a trial on Alzheimer's disease, and that was up to 85 years of age, but they had Alzheimer's or mild cognitive impairment. So that made sense, right? But had it been, you know, normal subjects, I don't think we will have recommended, you know, like an FMD every 2 months.
Did it work?
Normal.
Did it help? The Alzheimer's, did it help? I'm interested.
Yeah, I cannot talk about it. You know, I'm not the PI on that, but you know, it worked in the sense that they could finish it, and so it was safe. And we were surprised because we thought that they become frail, but that didn't happen. So that was very good news. And I think in that sense, it would be nice to say, okay, it can be used by an 85-year-old and under medical supervision, but yeah, we'll see what the cognitive effects are. Now, it's a little bit. There was tough trial. Why? Because early Alzheimer's disease, and by the time you have early Alzheimer's disease, your brain is really damaged, right? So the neurologist told us, don't do this. You know, it's like a miracle to make improvements in somebody like that. But so we'll see. But we're not that optimistic, based on what we heard from neurologists that, somebody that is already in Alzheimer's disease stage could come back, like we see for Crohn's or diabetes or pre-diabetes or cancer.
Yeah, because we were going to, our dad had a problem with, what did he have a problem with? His stomach.
Gallbladder.
Gallbladder, yeah. So we wanted to do some FMD rounds for him. And I think we did reach out to the company going, because he's 80, and I think the advice was it's probably not a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, everything has got to be tested, right? And the company, of course, has to be very careful about making medical connections that have not been proven by the independent hospitals, right? So, yeah, it may not work, but they certainly are not going to say it works or you should do it for that. Yeah.
Have you got any last questions, Lauretta?
Well, I just thought it might be nice to end with, for our listeners listening, 3 things that you believe, simple hacks that they can do that would improve their health span. I know, read your book, but
just do FMD.
Yeah.
Yeah, so FMD maybe 3 times a year, the longevity diet every day, and the 12-hour time restricted eating. I will add the 4th, of course, 150 minutes of exercise and 1 hour a day of walking. So that I'll do 4 instead of 3. Yeah.
Do you do an hour of walking every day? It's quite hard to fit all this stuff in, isn't it?
I do it.
Yeah.
I do it. I do 150 minutes. I do maybe 170, 180 minutes of exercise a week plus an hour walk per day. Yeah, so I do all the things that I preach. Maybe I don't do 3 FMD. I do 1 or 2, but because again I skip lunch every day and I don't want to overdo it. So yeah.
Brilliant. And before we say goodbye, I'm just going to check with you because I'm on day 5 now of FMD. Are you saying that there's not actually that much more benefit by doing an extra 2 days? Because I would love to start eating tomorrow, but I don't. I obviously still want to stick to the protocol.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't think you need to do 6 and 7. Now it's experimental, so leave it to us to do because it's working so well with the 5 days on autoimmunities that probably on diabetes and on lots of other things on biological age. So the 5 days are very, very effective. Until we show that the 7 days are more effective. Why? And also 7 days, there is a little bit of a risk of getting into this low energy expenditure modality. So eventually, if you go fasting too long, your energy expenditure gets slow, right? And that's the last thing you want to do. Yeah. So for all those reasons, I will stick with 5. And 5 has got 40 trials, but 7 only 1 trial, right? So.
Okay. Brilliant. That's such good news. I'm so glad. Such good timing that we got you today so I can stop my fast.
Thank you, Valter.
Thank you so much.
Do you know what? You're doing amazing work.
Absolutely incredible.
Thank you.
Honestly, making
Just
a real
incredible.
difference on this planet and what purpose. So thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
so much.
everything
Thank
you're
you.
doing.
Great to be on your show. Yeah.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Gavin Sisters Wellness Show. If you enjoyed the show, please follow us, share, spread the word. It will really help. And obviously, if you didn't like it, then keep stum. We're single mums.
If you want to get in touch, we'd love to hear from you. Please do drop us an email at thegavinsisters@gmail.com.